Hello there! You may or may not have heard the recent announcement that coming in 2020, Meredith Willson's The Music Man will be returning to Broadway, starring Hugh Jackman and Sutton Foster. This is a big deal. They're both superstars and Tony Award-winning triple threats, meaning they can act, sing, and dance, yet neither has been on Broadway for several years, so you can bet those tickets are going to be expensive. I think the role of Professor Harold Hill will be a good vehicle for Hugh Jackman's talents, plus if you've ever seen his solo rendition of Rock Island on Jay Leno, you've probably dreamed about this happening someday. But hearing this news made me all nostalgic for my first introduction to Jackman as a song and dance man, the filmed 1998 London production of Oklahoma. Oklahoma is one of those classic, quintessentially American musicals. It's a western, all about tensions between cowmen and farmers, with a love triangle, nope, make that 2 love triangles, unfolding against the backdrop of a burgeoning new territory. A commercial success in the early 1940s, it was the first of many collaborations between Richard Rodgers and Oscar Hammerstein. It's considered the first show to use musical numbers to advance the plot, though there's some debate about that, and in 1955 it was made into a film starring Gordon MacRae and Shirley Jones. Now, I'm not a huge fan of the show itself. I probably wouldn't put it on my list of favorite musicals. It's not even one of my favorite Rodgers and Hammerstein musicals, and I'll explain why, but I do love this production. This Royal National Theatre production, directed by Trevor Nunn, is packed with energy and keeps up a brisk, lively pace that perfectly mirrors the show's content. Part of that is thanks to the creative way it was staged and then filmed, but most of the energy comes from the exuberant cast. The characters have quite a different look from the 1955 movie. Everyone's more grungy, more sweaty, more earthy, which gives it an extra ring of authenticity, which I've always found lacking in that film. Also authentic are the accents, which is funny because there are very few Americans in the cast and crew. Considering that, it's kind of astonishing how convincing this production is. This is one of those shows where I like the music better than the story. The music I enjoyed so much that I got the cast recording. Hugh Jackman as Curly is great. It's like he's got an inexhaustible supply of energy and joy, and he's putting all of that into his performance. I remember, probably at least a decade ago, we had watched this a couple times, and I got Oh What a Beautiful Morning stuck in my head. And it was impossible to get out. Every day, that would be playing in my head. And honestly, I think there were some times when I found it pretty helpful, for those days when you just don't feel like waking up and getting going. It was kind of motivational. His co-star is Josefina Gabrielle as Laurie, a character who surprisingly doesn't have as many solos as the male lead. Oklahoma is a little unbalanced that way. The female lead doesn't have her own big solo number, having instead solo parts in songs where she's accompanied by an ensemble. The two of them work very well together. I love the performance of People Will Say We're in Love. I don't know what I like better, the singing or the acting. And I've always loved that the lead actors perform their own roles in the Dream Ballet. That's a very rare thing. Usually they're swapped out for professional dancers, which makes it more difficult for the audience to buy into the dream sequence. Supposedly, this is the first professional production of Oklahoma to have the Curly and Laurie actors do their own dancing in the ballet. I wish it was always like that. One of the things I do kind of dislike about the story, though, is the whole Curly-Laurie courtship thing, which, is a major part of the plot. It's just that the petty little games she plays with him are so irritating. Like, okay, she's all, I wouldn't go anywhere with the likes of you, let alone to the box social, until he says he's got some fancy transportation, a little yellow Surrey with the fringe on top. Then she's more than happy to be friendly because everyone's going to be so impressed. Oh wow, look at what Laurie came in. Then when he says he made the whole thing up, which is annoying, she has a tantrum, and to teach him a lesson, she turns around and accepts the escort of Judd Fry, the creepy pervy hired man who works the farm and is obsessed with her. And then she's all heartbroken and terrified when she realizes who she's stuck with and wishes she was going with Curly instead. Ugh! And don't get me started on the reckless, stupid things that Curly does during that hamper auction. But I do realize that if you didn't have all of that conflict, you wouldn't have some of the best moments in the show. So what you gonna do? I think my favorite number, and possibly my mom's favorite too, is Poor Judd is Dade. I gotta say it like that because it's written that way, Poor Judd is Dade. I can't say Poor Judd is dead. That's just too square. Curly confronts Judd in the smokehouse, playing some mind games with him, his goal being to make him back off of Laurie. His questionable tactic seems to be to convince Judd that he'd be better off hanging himself, and then all the women will come weep over him and it'll be a beautiful funeral. The scene is funny, intense, a little twisted, the writing is amazing, and I just love it when they sing together. This number is followed up with Judd Fry's only solo, Lonely Room. Shuler Hensley knocks it out of the park with his award-winning performance, and this song's a great showcase for his huge voice. It's a good villain song, dark and rich, and I wasn't familiar with it the first time I saw this on DVD, since it wasn't included in the movie. I kinda want to put this one on my list of top Rodgers and Hammerstein songs about unrequited love, but it doesn't really fit. It is about unrequited love, but it's the creepy kind. Judd is awkward and unattractive and totally besotted with Laurie. None of that is really his fault, but it's his refusal to accept rejection and the way he carries feelings of lust and jealousy and hatred to the ugliest extremes that make him so repulsive. Ugh. The smartest people in the show and my favorite characters are Aunt Eller, played by Maureen Lipman, and the Persian peddler Ali Hakim, played by Peter Polycarpou. They are both so funny. I love Aunt Eller's dryness, her unexpected laugh, the strong decisiveness of her character that makes her such a respected leader in the community. And the peddler is brilliant. He steals every scene he's in. I love his ever-increasing exasperation with all these backwards country bumpkins. There is a lot of nonsense here, and nearly everyone, except these two, has at least one big moment where they do something tremendously foolish, and I do find it frustrating. Something that always surprises me is how suggestive the show is, considering its age and the time when it came out. There's quite a bit of innuendo in the writing, which must have been as provocative in the original production as it is here. I mean, there's really no other way to interpret Addo Annie, and I can't say no, right? This production does add some of its own suggestive or racy touches, like the burlesque choreography in the dream sequence and the dirty pictures stuck on Judd's wall, which you can see from a distance. That's always awkward. So it's not quite the most wholesome, family-friendly show. Not like The Sound of Music. I do think the show's weakest point comes in the last 20 minutes or so. They sing the big title song, Ooooooooooooooooklahoma, where the wind comes sweeping down the plain. That one. And it feels like the big finale. And then they sing it again. And again. And with each big finish, you think, okay, that's it. It must be over. But it keeps going. It's not over. They actually have some loose ends that they still need to tie up. And that's when it starts to feel like the show that never ends. And when you're making that big dramatic push to the ending, you don't want your audience to be thinking, but I thought it was over 10 minutes ago. But it's a tough thing to complain about because it would be really bad if they didn't tie up those loose ends. So it's gotta be done. And this show has been around for decades, and it doesn't seem to show any signs of fading into obscurity, so I guess it's not that much of a problem. I hope you enjoyed this review. I said almost a year ago now that I was thinking of doing more musicals. Oklahoma isn't exactly one of the ones that I had in mind, but that's okay. I have no idea how well known this production is. I can think of conversations I've had with people over Hugh Jackman movies and saying, I really liked him in Oklahoma, and they had no idea what I was talking about. So, if you've seen it, I'd love to hear what you think of it. If you haven't seen it, well, you might want to check it out. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll be back soon with the monthly mini reviews. Thanks for watching.